is Pukeology Podcast, where science meets your hilarious puke stories and the tips and tricks to stop that up-chuckle that you need.
You never know what's going to spew out of her mouth. Here's
my mama,
Dr. Pukeology.
Have you ever driven in a car in your third trimester and wonder, are these airbags or seatbelts safe for me and my baby? Well, did you know that over 200,000 car crashes involve pregnant women, leading to about 400 fetal deaths every year? So I just have to tell you how you need to adjust your seatbelt if you're pregnant right now. This is all coming up in today's Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast, episode 69. Are airbags safe during pregnancy? Do you want no more morning sickness, pregnancy nausea, or how about no more headaches or migraines? Visit our sponsor, nomonausea.com, the only natural way to instantly stop your worst nausea, vomiting, or headaches now, and get 25% off with the code PUKE25. That's PUKE 25, or just place No More Nausea Band on your baby registry for your delivery room bag at Bye Bye Baby, or get it shipped for free in just 2 days on Amazon as a Prime vendor. And know your little ones are always taken care of with No More Nausea Kids and No More Sleepless Nights Kids, perfect for the start of the school year. And the No More Sleepless Nights actually works with moms too. So if you have little risk, go on and shop at Walmart now. Do you want to hear some pregnancy humor that may just make you want to pee your pants? Like you don't have to pee all the time anyway, with hilarious stories like cats meow, slip and slide, shirt happens? If you want to learn more about your pregnancy, humor and knowledge is the key to help you survive these 9 months. And just know we're in this together. Today, you will learn the science behind the risk versus benefits of car safety involving pregnant women during car crashes, doctor recommendations from not just yours truly, but from ACOG, and how to adjust your seatbelt if you are pregnant. And if you're riding in a car, how to avoid the dreaded car sickness naturally. Driving up right now on episode 69, Seatbelt Safety During Pregnancy.
The science of puke, pukeology.
Are seatbelts and airbags safe during pregnancy? Well, that's the main key topic that everyone wants to know. So airbags and seatbelts can help reduce the risk of death and sustain serious injury when one gets involved into a car accident. Over 200,000 car crashes involve pregnant women every year. So this might be a question before you put on your seatbelt. Like, should pregnant women deactivate the airbags? Should they avoid wearing a seatbelt while they're traveling? That's what we're going to get into more, because there is a proper way to place your seatbelt when you're pregnant. So are airbags safe during pregnancy? Yes, airbags are safe during pregnancy, and doctors recommend that you do not turn off the airbag by disabling the switch. Once again, airbags are recommended during pregnancy while you're driving. Do not turn off or disable the airbags. Current studies show that airbags do not increase the risk of pregnancy complications in women involved with traffic accidents. According to 2002 to 2005 study that was conducted by Washington State, that involved about 3,348 collisions, there was no evidence of increased risk of pregnancy complications like abruption of the placenta, detachment, which abruption of the placenta or placental abruption is the detachment of the placenta from the fundus of the uterus, which basically is a very large term for the separation between the two, the placenta and the uterus, which, as we all know, the placenta is what feeds the nutrients to the baby. The uterus is what is housing it. And so when there's a disconnect between the two, the baby no longer can get its vital nutrients that it needs in order to survive from mommy. So it also doesn't show any increase in complications, meaning emergency C-sections, fetal distress in women whose airbags have deployed in the time of the accident, because of the fact that they are bathed in this beautiful fluid. Okay, so your baby is inside of a kind of like, I call it a hot tub, but it's really well protected in there. So again, the baby is not at risk, even more so if you keep the airbag on. So make sure that it stays on, because it will keep you from having maternal death, is obviously what you want. However, studies did show that fetal demise did happen in more than 1% of women who involved in car airbag deployment versus those without the actual airbag. So anytime that you're having a very high velocity propulsion of anything that's coming directly at the actual stomach, that can be looked at as a high impact. And again, as I had stated before, of the 200,000 pregnant women who were involved in car accidents, they found that about 400 fetal deaths have occurred. And in this study, they did find that about 1% or so did lead to fetal demise, which is something that none of us want. It's actually something that's happened to one of my very good friends, and the reason why I had to write this podcast, because it is very near and dear to my heart. She was involved in a serious, very, very severe car accident. She was T-boned by a semi-truck pulling out of the hospital. Obviously, as a physician, I used to work inside of the hospital setting, and I'll never forget, I was on trauma call that day and saw her face. She was a nurse that I had worked with very well. She was at the time 9 months pregnant. The baby unfortunately did not survive. She ended up having to have her uterus removed. She's a very young 25-year-old who was fighting for her life. So I always want to caution everyone that the car safety is of the utmost importance, and it wasn't even her fault. But again, there are ways in which, if she could have used her safety belt or seat belt and taken the proper precautions to be put back from the airbag, so she wasn't literally on top of the airbag, it could have been a different situation altogether. But that was my motivation for writing this. So if you know anyone who has undergone fetal demise or a loss of a child due to car accident when they're pregnant, please comment, send me a message, because we really are all in this together. So sorry that was so heavy, but I will tell you what all of my colleagues say also. So you have to remember that the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists, the ACOG, recommend that women have their vehicle airbags abled the entire time. So do not disable them, because they are essentially saving the lives of the mother, and which is also saving the life of the child as well. So should pregnant women wear seatbelts? Yes, you should. Being pregnant, regardless if you're pregnant or not pregnant, you should be wearing your safety belt every single time you get in the car. So remember, whether you're in your first trimester or the third trimester, wearing a seatbelt is not just a recommendation, but it is the law. So protect yourself and your unborn baby. Make sure you're wearing your seatbelt, and we're going to go into, in the tips and tricks section, exactly where to place it, because I feel like I look into people's cars that are pregnant and they're wearing it incorrectly. So we'll get into that in a little bit. Studies show that about 80% of fetal deaths due to road traffic accidents would not have occurred if their mothers would have been buckled with their seatbelt. That definitely brings a tear to my eye. But again, we are all here to inform and help all of us get through a safe and healthy and happy pregnancy. So further studies show that wearing a safety belt does not increase the risk of harm to your unborn child. Besides, if you don't sustain an injury during the traffic accident, there are higher chances that your unborn child will not be harmed as well. But there are possibilities that your baby is harmed, basically when you're putting the actual safety belt too high above, especially during your third trimester. We're going to really make sure that it's down below, holding on to your hips. Okay, so therefore, buckling your seatbelt will help protect you and the risk of harm of your unborn child. So how should you wear your safety belt during the actual pregnancy? Well, the safety belt should be worn as a slight adjustment. Okay, you should make sure that your shoulder is across your shoulder, away from your neck, and you can do that by altering there's something on the wall of the driver's seat over on the left-hand side or the passenger seat, and you move that up or down depending. So again, you don't want to choke yourself. The whole idea is that it should be worn across your chest. It shouldn't be worn as a guillotine, okay, which just means don't put it around your neck itself. You also need to make sure that it passes onto your shoulder, away from your neck, and across your chest, in between your breasts. Now, ladies, I understand we get those tiggo bitties, right, during pregnancy because they get nice and full up with milk, but there is still that cleavage area in the middle. That's where your safety belt technically should be. Also, always avoid placing your seatbelt below your armpits, or through to your back. So some people, I see that all the time, they throw it backwards. That's not going to prohibit you from being caught if you're moving in forward motion. And as Newton's law shows us, once in motion, you stay in motion unless stopped by an outside force. So the stopping point of that outside force is that seatbelt. But unfortunately, you're just going to keep on going if you don't have that seatbelt worn appropriately. Now, if you are wearing a lap belt, be sure it is secured below your tummy and it doesn't compress the actual belly just in case a car crash occurs. Always remember, put it nice and low, just like Lil Jon said, get low, get low, get low, and make sure that the lap belt fits snugly. So it should not be super loose. If it is loose, guess what? You smack up against it and that can actually cause more harm than if you have it placed nice and snug, and your seatbelt will adjust depending upon how much force you go forward. That was a little intense. Now let's get to some laughter because I feel like we all need some hilarious pregnancy stories.
Throwing up on a Tuesday? One puke story.
I'll start off by saying my cats like to drink toilet bowl water. I had a sudden urge to puke one day. I was having horrible morning sickness, so I ran to the bathroom, and what do you know? My cat was there trying to have some water. I couldn't hold it anymore, and it came out all over my cat. Poor kitty. Let's just say I haven't caught her drinking toilet bowl water for a while, or if she sees me coming because of the very frequent bathroom use, she gets out of my way. That's a pretty silly kitty. I can only imagine. Oh, and then you probably had to wash that poor cat. Oh, talk about horrible morning sickness for a second go around. Thanks again, Kitty Mom 7, for that hilarious puke story. I've been nauseated pretty much all day, every day. I usually just dry heave, but I've puked several times too. This evening, I wasn't feeling too great, so I decided to take a warm bath to see if it would help. It was going well until about minute 15 in, I vomited all over the tub while I was still in it. I can't wait for the second trimester that everyone says is perfect. LOL. I didn't want to risk getting out of the soaking wet and slip on the tile. Oh my gosh. I hope it wasn't chunky so it got drained out. You poor thing. All I can say, Emily G, thank you for your puke story, and I will keep that in mind the next time I have a bath, which we're all moms here. I highly doubt you have time for a bath. So my dog had the runs this morning, and I didn't think much of it. Probably just an upset stomach. I had to go paint my old house that I'm trying to sell, and I left him alone with my other dog at my new place. Went and painted for 4 hours, grabbed some food, and when I came home, opened the door and I could smell poop. Let the dogs out and went and found a trail of runny poop on the living room floor. Thankfully, it's hardwood. I started to gag and ran outside for fresh air. Too late, I puked off the end of the deck and peed a little bit because I had a loose bladder when I was puking, but I still had to clean up the mess. So I zipped up my hoodie where it was over my nose and mouth, get an old towel, and hoped it wouldn't smell. Started wiping up the slimy mess and lose it. Get up to run to the bathroom, started puking on my way, only my hoodie was covering my face, so I ended up puking down my shirt, and of course, I can't hold my bladder. I finished puking in a bucket, going to the bathroom, and had to clean myself up. I still have to clean up the poopy mess, cover it with vinegar to keep the smell down, and find some couch cushions the dogs had knocked down. Puke, of course, was on it. So now doing a lot of really gross laundry and questioning my sanity as how am I going to do this with dirty cloth diapers? Do you have a hilarious puke story that you just can't wait to share? Send it to me. Pukeology, Pukeology at nomonausea.com. That's nomo, NAUSEA.com, or tweet me at Pukeology so we can all have a good laugh.
Tips and tricks to stop the up-chuckle that you need.
Just to recap, how should you be wearing your seatbelt? Well, you should have the most comfortable position for you and for the baby. First thing is click in. That's the first thing. Click it or ticket is what we say in Florida. It is a law. Make sure that you are wearing your seatbelt even if you are pregnant. You pull down, make sure that it is adjusted appropriately on the wall by pressing the little button in and adjusting it up or down. It should fit around your chest, in between your breasts, and down to click into the actual safety belt. The second part, which is the lap restraint, needs to go lower. So the lap restraint itself goes nice and low on your hips to where it would catch. Make sure it fits snugly. If you have an older car and for some reason that where you cheek, where it pulls and then it kind of has no more give and take, you need to make sure that you go get it fixed, especially as you get higher and higher into the trimesters, because of the fact your baby is getting larger and larger and can sustain a lot more damage when it's closer to. They always recommend that you are approximately within an arm, like a forearm's length distance away from your airbag. You don't want to be on top of it. Do not be like my grandma when she drives. Literally her face is on the airbag and it scares me half to death. Make sure that you pull the seat away from your chest a little bit more. So you should adjust your seat to the position that provides you the most comfort throughout your journey. For instance, your seat should be upright, allowing you to maintain a reasonable distance between your tummy and the steering wheel and or dashboard, like we talked about. Now, another thing that is important is that we didn't talk about this in today's episode, but it's called deep vein thrombosis, DVTs. So it's when you are sitting for prolonged periods of time. We pregnant women have really bad cramps during pregnancy, and that's because of electrolyte imbalance. You want to make sure if you are taking a long trip, you're decreasing your salt intake, but that you have enough potassium to sustain yourself so you don't get cramps, but as well as make sure that you're moving your feet. If you work at a desk, do little calf raises or something, anything that you can do to push the blood. Nobody wants cankles, right? It causes worse varicose veins even after that you're pregnant, but you want to make sure that you get the movement and the motion of your feet, pushing that blood up against towards your head and your heart again. So why do pregnant women get such bad car sickness, even if you're a person that doesn't? So if you already suffer with motion sickness, it is no surprise to you that you have to be in the front of the car. You can't read or play video games while the car is moving, because all of those things cause an increase in the feeling of nausea while that car is moving. But did you know that pregnancy actually makes you more sensitive to car sickness? Women who suffer with morning sickness, usually about 80% of all pregnant women, generally have acute car sickness and vertigo-like symptoms when riding in a car. So nausea can also happen from the smell of gasoline, which has been recorded very frequently as things that people cannot stand to smell during their pregnancy. It's because our body's protecting the baby. We don't want harsh or toxic chemicals being inhaled. Another thing is if you have a partner who smokes, which I hope you do not. But again, that smell of smoke just literally deters pregnant women. It actually gives them horrible nausea and vomiting. And that's because, again, your body is protecting you and your unborn child. So to get rid of car sickness in just seconds, using a 3-in-1 technique, okay? I'm going to give you like this secret. You ready? Apply acupressure about 45 minutes before you go on to a car trip or a long trip, and you're going to apply pressure at P6. So the P6 point, if you want to do it with me, you find 3-finger distance from the first wrist crease, and then I want you to wiggle your pointer and your middle finger. You'll feel the tendons. Now, that 3-finger distance, you're going to put a dot literally in between those 2 tendons, and that's what's called the P6 point. Now, applying pressure there will actually increase the amount of happy hormones, also known as anti-nausea hormones, and will bathe your body basically for an entire day, as long as it's being pressed for 5 to 15 minutes and intervals of no more than 5 minutes at a time. But let's be real, who has time to keep applying and holding pressure? I know I don't. That's the reason why the No More Nausea band makes it so easy. You literally put it on, and not only is it waterproof, but they've added essential oil infused inside of this band. So anytime that you start to feel sick, like you're going to throw up, you literally smell the band. And what that does is the fastest way to get into your brain is through your nose. So you smell it, and the effervescence or the peppermint essential oil that's in it, which is medical grade, you smell it, and then it immediately sends a signal to not puke into your brain. We also call this distraction technology because it's forcing your brain to do something else to alleviate and relieve that car sickness that you once had. So you can make this band at home utilizing peppermint and any type of pressure which you're holding it, but when the price point is under $15, why would you? Just pick up one from Amazon or nomonausea.com, and you'll never have to deal with a super high car detail bill if you give up your cookies in your own car. So bottom line, pregnant ladies, airbags and seatbelts are your most effective tool to protect yourself and your unborn baby during a traffic accident. Ensure that your airbag switch is not turned off through the journey. During pregnancy, ensure that you are appropriately wearing your seatbelt as discussed above. And in any case that you are involved in a car accident, always remember to call your doctor, your OBGYN, your midwife, and go in and get the baby assessed to make sure that there is still fetal heart tones, which means the heart of the baby is still working well as any other. They'll do a sonogram to check out your anatomy and the anatomy of the baby's house, which is the uterus, the placenta, and all of the other necessary nutrients and environment that the baby is in. Remember that your car safety is the safety of you and your unborn child. I just want to thank you so much for going on this journey with me today. It does mean the world because I have had friends who have had children fetal demise during their 9th month of pregnancy. So just remember, car safety, seatbelts, airbags will save your life, but also make sure that it's put inside of the proper positioning. And I'm so excited to be able to share all of this data, which is the airbag. Is airbag safety necessary during pregnancy? Absolutely. And that was what our Pregnancy Pukeology podcast was all about today. So if you do love me, Dr. Puke Nomo, and our Pregnancy Pukeology podcast, let me know. Give me 5-star ratings, give me likes, hearts, whatever it is that you want to do. But don't forget to download this episode. More importantly, share it with all your prego friends. Thanks again for listening to Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast, episode 69, Seatbelt Safety During Pregnancy.
Pukeology Podcast, edutainment at its finest.